Good evening, everyone. Did you know that 1 in every 10 people will go through depression in their lifetime? Also, did you know that 1 in every 25 suicide attempts end in death? Mental illness, like depression, is a plague that incapacitates the human brain and takes over one's thoughts and feelings. Today, many people become depressed and suicidal thoughts begin to roam the mind. Some that are affected are friends and even our loved ones and relatives. While depression impacts the individual experiencing it, it also affects the friends and family. I have seen personally and experienced a friend of mine from high school go through the loss of her dad due to depression. He committed suicide because of depression. With the experience that I had, dealing with it was very difficult. Dealing with, the questions that they had that were never to be answered because we would never know the answers is what is extremely tough. Today, I want to tell you about the problems that the family members had with dealing with depression, the reasons the depressed person is unable to cope. In some ways, family members can help. General depression is a syndrome with a group of symptoms caused by mood disorders, characterized by sadness and even grief. Depression can lead to self-harm like suicide. It can ruin a family. There's different factors, physiological, environmental, social. There's different risks that come along that follow depression. The differences in depression symptoms can be anywhere defined from your age, your gender, your ethnicity, different things like that. Depression is only diagnosed clinically, and once it has been diagnosed, even by a family member that you can see, it's crucial to see a health profession to try to get help. If it's untreated or undertreated, it can become worse or eventually worsen and come back. There are different things to do when it comes to dealing with a depressed individual. Support and encouragement plays a huge role in a depressed individual recovery. If someone's depressed, it's always great to be there and support them. And even if you don't have advice to give them, which would be really hard, it's great to just sit back and listen to what they have to say. Depression is a serious condition. You never need to underestimate the power and seriousness of depression because suicidal thoughts are so real and they're so harmful and dangerous to the life of a person. It drains a person's energy and motivation. It makes the person not want to do anything. It makes them want to think, well, I don't want to wake up in the morning, so maybe I'll just lay here and try to kill myself. Symptoms are extreme too. Depression makes it difficult to connect on an emotional and a personal level with anyone, whether it be your friends or your best friend or your family. Hiding the problem will not make it go away. Even though a depressed individual may be angry or, saying hurtful things, you can't just hide it. You have to deal with what's going on in the life. You don't need to avoid the person who is depressed, because if you avoid them, they'll feel like they already have no one. It'd be pointless for them to continue their life on earth. You can't fix someone else's depression. You can't try to just say it's going to be okay, get up and move on with your life. That person just lost someone that they love dearly, and they feel like there's nothing they can do. There's nothing that they have that would make them stay here on this earth. Don't blame yourself for what's going on. There's things that, you could blame yourself for, but a depressed person who, is depressed and wants to end their life, there's nothing you can do about it. That's something that is completely 100% on the depressed individual. You should be concerned of your loved one if they don't seem to care about anything. They have a negative outlook on life. They complain about being tired or sick, or they eat too much, or they don't eat enough, or they drink too much and abuse drugs. That's a sign that someone is becoming depressed. Depressed people tend to isolate or withdraw themselves from other people because they just feel like they have no one. They want to be by themselves. They want to feel lonely and sad. When you have a depressed friend or relative, it's always great to be a compassionate listener. Being a compassionate listener is much more important than giving advice, when depression leads to suicide. When someone is depressed, like I said, Suicide is real, suicide is harmful, and suicide is dangerous. There are multiple actions that can be taken when someone commits suicide. There are so many feelings that, go on and come about when the depressed individual seems to commit suicide, when they have commit suicide. You have intense emotions that begin to trigger. You are shocked when you hear the news. You're shocked when you realize that you wake up in the next morning and the person that you talk to every morning is not there. You feel angry because you don't know why they left you. They left you with unanswered questions. You feel guilty. You feel like you may have had a part of this, that you may, be a reason why they may have committed suicide. You feel despair. You feel like you were left behind. You feel like, you were nothing to that person. You feel confused. The unanswered questions that you have, the things you have to say, they make you feel confused. You don't understand why things happen and why it's going on the way it is. You need to keep in touch with the family and friends that have dealt with this, even though if you're a friend of the family and that person has committed suicide, they need someone to talk to. They need someone to turn to. Don't show any emotions because they weren't, like if it's a family member, you can't really show emotions if it's your friend's family. You have to grieve in your own way. You have to be prepared for painful reminders. If you go somewhere where that person was, you think back on, wow, this is what we did this day. We did this here. It's painful to think about the things that you used to do. Face the future with a sense of peace. Everything will be okay in the end. Although you may ask why, along with many other questions, the grief and the anger and the confusion and the despair will eventually fade and just turn and be okay. Although suicide is heartbreaking for friends and family who are left behind, the long-term effects that stay are even worse. And 10 years from now, it becomes even worse. Every year in the United States, 33,000 people take their lives and leave their friends and family behind to pick up the pieces. The effects on suicide on those left behind are never easy. The grief process will always be difficult, but having to deal with a loss due to suicide is a little worse because of the unanswered questions and the anger. People that have experienced suicide are trying to cope on their own. They need support. They need someone to be there for them. They need someone to just sit there and talk to and you be a compassionate listener. Things that make suicide difficult are the traumatic aftermath, the stigma, the shame, the isolation, the mixed emotions, the need for reasoning, the risk for survivors, the questions and the anger that come upon. It will always be difficult. It will never become easy. The questions will never be answered. Although years later it will become easy, for the time it's not going to be easy. It's always nice to have a friend, stay close, keep in touch with them, try to be there for them. Remember the good life of the person. Be there for the long haul in the future. That's the biggest one. Being there is the 100% thing that will make you feel great. When you lose somebody, being there for them and them knowing that they have someone there for you, for them, is great. Like, if you were to deal with a suicide loss, you would want someone there for you. You would want someone there to hold you when you're upset. So, as you can see, depression is not a positive thing. It's very negative, and it's extremely hard to deal with. Dealing with depression, and even depression that leads to suicide, is hard to understand and to live with because of the unanswered questions. It leaves heartbreak and questioning that will haunt you forever. Always be kind to those who cross your path, for you never know what they may be going through.